Hi, I'm State Senator Scott White from the 46th Legislative District in North Seattle. Thanks for watching my latest video update. We're now into week 6 of the legislative session here in Olympia, and we're starting to approach some key cutoff dates in the legislative process. Due to the way the legislative calendar works, in a little over a week, all Senate bills will have to be voted out of committee and available for floor action in order to continue moving through the legislative process. We've already begun to take votes on major pieces of legislation in the Senate. Last week, we passed an early supplemental budget package that is now being considered by the House. The vote on the budget was especially difficult, but in the Senate proposal, we did succeed in nearly closing the $1 billion budget gap we currently face for the remainder of this fiscal year. Now, there is no doubt that the cuts we propose to make in services and programs will most certainly be felt. However, I think to a large extent, we were able to pass a budget proposal that maintains the core responsibilities for the citizens of Washington. I think this was especially true of our efforts to keep our state's safety net intact by preserving the critical social services like the Disability Lifeline Program, the Basic Health Program, and the Children's Health Program. Our proposal also maintains partial funding for smaller elementary school classroom sizes and preserves state funding for poorer school districts throughout the state. Unfortunately, our higher education system took an especially hard hit in the proposed budget. While I can't guarantee this won't happen, I will continue to advocate for spending our shrinking higher education dollars on financial aid programs that will help the neediest in our state obtain college educations. As I've said before, writing the state budget for the next few years is our top priority for this session and will likely be one of the biggest challenges I'll ever face as a state legislator. There are several factors that contribute to our current budget situation and that affect how we might balance the budget. First and foremost, there is no question that the biggest factor is the lower than expected revenues, which is a direct result of the ongoing economic recession. This Great Recession, as we call it, continues to undermine the ability of Washington and nearly every state in the country to pay for ongoing expenses. Interestingly, because our state revenue stream relies so heavily on taxes associated with consumer spending, Washington has been among the hardest hit states. So far, the recession has erased nearly $15 billion in projected state revenues. Second, the voters in November reimposed a requirement for a 2/3 vote in the legislature to raise any additional revenue. While there is some interest in the idea of closing tax loopholes and special tax breaks deemed outdated or ineffective, it's important to keep in mind that the 2/3 barrier to new revenues applies to closing tax loopholes too. And finally, I'll remind you that roughly 60% of our $32 billion budget cannot be cut because of constitutional or federal requirements. This includes funding for things such as basic education, Medicaid, and debt service. This also means the size of the pie from which the legislature must cut is significantly smaller than the overall budget itself. Altogether, these restrictions literally leave us with our hands tied and with very few places to make cuts other than the services that matter the most to the people in our state. Last week, we also passed an unemployment insurance package in the Senate that ensures 70,000 unemployed workers and their families will receive extended benefits through the end of the year. The bill would also provide much-needed relief to employers in our state through a temporary tax cut that would give an immediate break to 90% of employers in Washington. This is likely to be the first of 2 of the state's unemployment insurance program votes this session. We will also be exploring options for using federal dollars to temporarily increase benefits to unemployed families. I'm also happy to report that my 2 bills aimed at keeping kids tobacco-free have now received public hearings. I believe we must do what we can to keep kids off tobacco and to protect them from the dangers associated with secondhand smoke. Right now, we're in a situation where we prevent smoking in bars and public places, but we do not prevent a 2-year-old from being strapped into the car seat and driven across the state for 6 hours in a car filled with smoke. One of my bills would make it a secondary offense for an adult to smoke in a car while kids are present. I'm also concerned with tobacco companies' ongoing campaigns to market tobacco products to young people. Their latest ploy is to use flavors like banana split and cookie dough in smokeless tobacco products in an attempt to expose kids to these highly addictive and deadly products at an early age. Last year, the FDA banned the sale of flavored cigarettes in an effort to make them less appealing to young people. Here in Washington, I am sponsoring a bill along a similar vein that would ban the sale of flavored or scented smokeless tobacco and require all tobacco products to be sold behind counters. The bill also leaves room for increased local control on this issue in communities where there is a desire to be more restrictive than state law. That's it for this update. Thank you for your interest and engagement in the process. As always, please contact my office with your thoughts on any of these issues. Thanks again, and take care.